said to me 20 years ago I'd be trading people around the city of Belfast, showing them, as a tour guide, I'd laughed at you.
Belfast has developed a growing tourism industry, with the number of visitors increasing year on year. In 2012, a record 1.98 million people visited the city, but with its troubled recent past, is there a darker side to tourism here in Belfast?
This is where it all started. On the 15th of August 1969, this street was attacked by loyalists and burned to the ground. And once that started, it mushroomed out from here, and you had Catholics being attacked all over Belfast. And then what you had were Catholics attacking Protestant homes.
For 30 years, the Troubles tore Northern Ireland apart. The conflict between those loyal to the British Crown and Republicans who fought for an independent Ireland killed more than 3,500 people. Back then, Paddy Campbell was a taxi driver, but now he's a tour guide, using his knowledge of the Troubles to show tourists what happened.
We justify everything that took place here because we're trying to get tourists or people that come to Northern Ireland to see us, and what we need to do is get them into the same mindset as people here. And what I mean by that is we're actually dealing with the word terrorist. One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, or defender, depending where you are in Belfast. And no matter what the atrocity, there was always somebody here to justify it.
Conflict tourism in Belfast is one of the top 10 things to do in the British Isles. 11% of those who visit Northern Ireland take a tour of the Troubles, many of which are promoted by the Belfast Tourism Office. But this one, A History of Terror, which is a walking tour of the city, has offended some of those in the local community.
Belfast Welcome Centre, which is primarily funded by Belfast City Council, say that we are at too high risk of causing offence to citizens of Belfast, and that we may deepen and harden divisions in two communities.
The tour takes visitors around the city centre to look at sites of death from 1971 to 1976, which are not commemorated in any way. It differs from any other tourism attraction in Belfast, and this is what Mark wanted to do.
We believe that tourism as a whole in Northern Ireland wish to airbrush the conflict and the old reasons why Belfast was ever in the news from the tourism offering. We're trying to focus on the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland and the Titanic building, which in itself, I believe personally, is an edifice of dark tourism.
But for some in Northern Ireland, such tourism is just too recent. The divide between Protestants and Catholics still runs deep in some parts of Belfast. In November this year, another wall was constructed to keep the two communities apart. Dominic Bryan, the Director of Irish Studies at Queen's University, agrees that this kind of tourism can be problematic for the city.
People who visit here will know it's a very divided city with walls running between estates. Now, if you were to move on from that, you can't just wish it all away. You have to find ways of dealing with it. And it's either ironic, it's certainly ironic, but also potentially a good thing that you invite people in to have a look at that conflict. And so out of that, we are struggling to look at the past, and one of the parts of that struggle is through what people have called dark tourism.
The Maze prison is notorious in Northern Ireland. It's where thousands of prisoners were held under the British government's policy of internment. Now there are calls to make the prison site a peace centre. Not everyone supports this. Northern Ireland's First Minister, Peter Robinson, says it could become a mecca for tourists. But one man who is in favour is Liam Stone. He's a former member of the IRA who spent 7 years in the Maze.
My view of dealing with history is that we have to accept that it happened. We can't pretend that it didn't happen. And the way to deal with it is to face up to it openly and honestly. And say these are things that happened. And examine them. And examine them with the viewpoint of ensuring that they never happen again. Because if we pretend that they didn't happen, we're not doing anybody any favours in that sense. And in terms of the unionist opposition to the peace centre at Rockhouse, I just simply have to ask the question, who's afraid of peace?
Shankill Road on the left, Falls Road on the right, Crumlin Road in the centre. 3 of the focal points for the bombings during the height of the Troubles. Some of the relatives of those who were affected by these attacks are opposed to these sites being used as tourist attractions. But perhaps surprisingly, not all of them. One man whose family had a business in one of these areas says this kind of tourism is the best way for the city and Northern Ireland as a whole to move forward.
We were stuck right in the middle of it, so we were. My father's business was based on the Crumlin Road in Belfast, again right in the heart of both communities. And during the bad times of the Troubles, which is the early 70s through the 80s, the premises we worked out of, which was an old picture house, Savoy Picture House in North Belfast, it was bombed on 7 occasions.
There's no doubt that tensions in Belfast remain high. The path to peace has been long and difficult. It also remains fragile.
We're a very small minority, we're a very small country. Any money you're bringing into the country has to help. And from any side, everything is for the good of the country, and we're trying to re-establish Northern Ireland in this day and age in the modern era. And people have fought long and hard to make it go forward. And they're entitled. Everybody's entitled to their own beliefs, but at the end of the day, it is what it is, and we all have to move on with life.